I wonder, what is the nicest thing that anyone has ever done for you? What is the nicest thing that anyone has ever done for you that you can remember? When was the last time that you remember someone really went out of their way to help you? There are examples of this all throughout our lives. And I want you guys to really think about it. Think about the day someone really helped you out, going above and beyond. And think about how you felt that day, when they did that. We naturally, I think, like to help people. I don't think anyone here is not helpful. And maybe I'm naive or something, but I feel like, I genuinely think that people do like and want to help one another. Unless, of course, you're driving. And when you're driving, you don't care about anybody else but yourself. You're going to stick your car into every little hole you can find, that's fine. Driving is a whole different part of life. Let's ignore anything on the road. But in all other aspects of our life, I feel like people genuinely do want to help other people. Yet, I think it's easy for us to help strangers. And I wonder, and I don't know, I feel, maybe, again, this might just be me, but this is my own personal observation, and not so much from, this is what I'm saying. I could be wrong. Maybe you could correct me later if I'm wrong. But from my observation, I feel like a lot of times we tend to be, we tend to help strangers, we tend to be a little nicer to people, we tend to be nice people that we don't know. I've seen great amounts of generosity people have done for one another, for people that they don't know. I've seen random people stop off and help people whose cars are broken down on the road. I remember one time when I was in, I think it was when I was in college, for some reason there was this girl who was just sitting by herself on a bench and she was crying. No idea why. And everybody you could see was just passing her by. There's a girl sitting on a bench in the middle of the campus, and she's crying. Everyone sees, and it's not like that she's trying to even conceal it. She's sitting there just crying. And a lot of people just kept on going, just walked by, ignored her. And maybe in their minds, I'm sure they justify. They're like, oh, well, she looks like she's not having a very good day. I'm just going to let her. Maybe she just wants to be by herself. If she wanted to be by herself, she would be sitting in the middle of a public campus, sitting on a public bench, crying. So one of my friends decided he's going to make her day a little nicer. So as we're approaching this young woman, he goes over to this little store, buys a greeting card, just finds a nice one that says, hey, hope you're feeling better. Just a nice one, nothing special about it. And writes a little message, don't feel alone, God is with you, something like just a nice message. And as we walked by, didn't stop, didn't look at her, placed the card next to her and just kept on walking. And don't you think in that moment, this girl who was crying for whatever reason, saw that someone took the time to get this card. We didn't stop, we didn't talk to her. In case she wanted to be left alone. But you could see that she looked at the card. She appreciated it, I'm sure. These what we call random acts of kindness. What Christ is doing here, though, is he's asking us to do something kind of like that. Going beyond what normal people would do, what other people would do. We do have a tendency, and this one I do know, we do have a tendency of talking only to people that we're familiar with. We do have a tendency of clustering in our little groups. That I know, because that I've seen. What Christ is telling us is that we need to kind of go beyond our comfort zones. Why is it that we do have these little groups of clusters? Why is it that certain people in particular age groups cluster together? Or certain people of certain areas cluster together. Or people who maybe come from the same hometown in India cluster together. We make these little clusters ourselves because we tend to be more comfortable. It's more comfortable with people that I know. It's more comfortable. It's easier. There's no effort that has to happen. But if we were called to live a comfortable life, if we were called to live an easy life, then all of us would be exactly the same person. All of us would be the same, we'd be all from the same place, we'd all talk the same, we'd all have similar backgrounds, we'd all be the same age, we'd all have the same job. That's not what we are. Christ made each and every single one of us an individual. Made each and every single one of us different. And he says here, how do you love, and how you love those people. You've heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I tell you to resist an evil person. Whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other also. This entire set of teachings is very familiar one. It's taken from Matthew chapters 5 to 7. Right? This is right in the middle. We're in between the end of chapter 5 and the beginning of chapter 6. This is Matthew chapters 5 through 7. It's very, very famous, very, very well-known passage, which is the Sermon on the Mount. Absolutely, right? And in it, he goes through all these teachings. And you got to read through all these things. In fact, just go home and sit through and just read 5 through 7 just in one sitting. Just read it all together as one giant teaching. And put it all together and see what Christ is trying to tell us. I tell you not to resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other also. Whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Whoever wants your tunic, give him your cloak. There's an established, accepted law. Moses gave the Jewish people a very particular law. And the reason that it was necessary is because of how fallen the people were. And the people kept on falling. And they kept on making mistakes. And they kept needing more and more rules to govern their society. I think I've said this one point before. If everyone drove safely, would there even be a need for a speed limit? Why are there speed limits on the highways? Why are there speed limits on the roads? You could answer. Why? So anyone who's driven with me know that. Right? The reason is because there's people who, if you didn't put the speed limit there, I mean, let's be honest. I drive up and down 294 almost every single day. And that 55 mile per hour speed limit, no one listens to it. Nobody. There's at least people going like 100 miles an hour on the road. I don't know why. But let's just say hypothetically, why are there speed limits? To keep everybody safe? How? If there weren't speed limits, what would happen? Who's going to drive too fast? There's going to be those people who drive too fast and cause accidents and kill people on the roads. Moses gave the people a very specific set of laws governing almost every aspect of their life. Every aspect of life there were laws given. Even how to deal with other people. You've even heard it, right? What do you do if you want to get a divorce? What do you do if someone wrongs you? What do you do if you hate someone? What do you do if you have an enemy? All these like random rules in every aspect of someone's life, there are rules. The reason for that is because of the people who would tend to abuse them. Rules are not meant for the people who genuinely do things the right way anyways. It's for those people who want to push these boundaries a little bit, but in a bad way. And so there are all these different rules here, but Christ is saying, don't just look at the letter of this law. Don't just look at the rule. If someone compels you to go with him 1 mile, go with him 2. Don't just follow the letter of the law, but look at the spirit of the law. Christ says that as a Christian, as those who follow him, we don't just do what everybody else does. We don't just do what everybody else does and just have that bare existence. Because he says if you just do that bare existence, just doing what everybody else does, how are you different than the sinners? How are you different than tax collectors? Why is he harping on tax collectors here? The tax collectors were very corrupt people at the time. And everybody knew that. So why is he harping on them? Because they were probably some of the most corrupt people in the political establishment. And so he's saying, don't be like them, because even they follow the rules. But he says, go beyond that. He says time and time again, you've heard it said before, if someone murders, they're going to be liable for punishment. But I tell you, if you're angry with your brother, that's the same as what? Murder. He says, don't commit adultery. Not only that, if you have lust in your heart, that's the same. Think about what he's saying. There's this established practice. The bare minimum is not good enough anymore. Because Christ says you're not regular people, you're chosen. If you listen to the last couple of words, the verses that were read in the two epistles here, they're both, the idea is that you belong to God. You are Christ's. You're not normal. You're not just a regular old person. You belong to Christ and you're special. And because we belong to Christ and because we're special, there's a greater expectation for all of us. Don't just live a life like everybody else is doing, but going above and beyond the law, going above and beyond the minimum, and going above and beyond for one another. This idea, if someone needs help, don't just give them the minimum help that they need. But think about the amount of help that's expected. Go with them that extra mile. When someone wants your tunic, don't just give them the tunic, give them the cloak as well. Tunic being like, something, a very basic outfit, like a very basic shirt. No, go beyond that. Get them the whole suit, if you will. Go above and beyond their expectations, and then truly, you'll be blessed. Because if we do the very, very bare minimum, that's not any different than anybody else out there. Then what makes us Christian? What makes us followers of Christ if we're not doing anything different? We're called to be different. How different are we supposed to be? This passage here ends with if you remember Barnabas and may he rest in peace. Barnabas and would always say this all the time: be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect. We tell our kids all the time, I think I said this before too, how high are our expectations for our kids in school? They're so high. What did you do? Does anyone here realistically, and don't raise your hand if you do, because I'm sorry, but does anyone here realistically go and tell our kids, just shoot for the C? Just get a C. Just get that B minus. Okay, B minus. B minus. I don't think anyone here really says that. The parents here, I don't even think you tell your kids to go for the A. I don't even think you say that. Like, you better go for the A+. You need to be number one. Aim for number one. Right? It's like that meme that I talked about a long time ago, right? When the person got 97, he's really excited, but of course my only parent is like, where's the other 3 points? For everything we have to aim for perfection, including our spiritual lives. And it doesn't mean you're going to get there. None of us here is going to be God. But if your sight isn't even set on perfection, you're going to fail. Because we're human and we fail all the time. The idea is that at least if you're aiming for the A, you're going the right direction. If you're at least aiming for God, if you're aiming to be like Christ, you're doing the right thing. But if you're just aiming to be like everybody else, how is that any different? Christ is telling us, be like God. Be perfect. Aim for perfection in all things, and most especially, as he's talking about here, our dealings with one another. Every interaction that we have with one another, the person should feel like, oh, this person has gone above and beyond for me. So go back and read that, Matthew 5-7, and really digest what Christ is trying to tell us. Be perfect. All praise and thanks even to the blessed Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and always and forever and ever.